One of the biggest summer transfers so far has been that of Jude Bellingham to Real Madrid. Kieran Gibbs still with us, but let's welcome in Sid Lowe as well, who's been writing about Jude Bellingham and how he may fit in Spain, where other British players before him haven't fared so well, it is fair to say. Now, before we do get to that, though, Sid, we just need to give everybody a reminder of the bromance that is blossoming between Jude Bellingham and Sid Lowe. Here is Jude Bellingham speaking in his first press conference for Real Madrid.
Oh.
Hi Jude, Sid Lowe from The Guardian. I wanted to ask you a little bit about this whole process. Obviously, you said on the face of it, it's very simple. It's Real Madrid, it's the biggest club in the world with the greatest history. I just wondered if there's been a kind of an analytical process in all of this as well, if you looked at the way that they play, if you thought about your fit within the team.
I'm a big fan, by the way. I used to do the La Liga on Sky and all the channels in England, so I'm a big fan.
OK, when I did see that, Sid, I know you're a bit embarrassed about it, but obviously...
He doesn't really.
But I was like, I wish I could see his reaction.
But he's playing the hate card. I hate all that. But he went home to his missus, he went, did you see what Bellingham said?
We all saw it. Sid, what was your reaction when he said that?
Well, I didn't really have one. I sort of looked to the floor and tried to carry on.
Was it a case of mistaken identity, Sid? Was you actually on those channels he was talking about? That is absolutely it, Craig. I'm completely convinced it was a case of mistaken identity. What I'm worried about is who I've been mistaken with. That's how bad it might be. Who could it possibly be? Yeah. Okay.
I mean, does he think I'm Dan Thomas? That's the really worrying thing. He thinks I'm Dan, doesn't he? That would be tragic.
I really loved when you were hosting those La Liga shows. I'm a big fan.
You were great back then. Sid, are you going to use that influence and that blossoming bromance to help him settle in Madrid?
No, of course not. I'm not sure I'd be allowed to, even if I tried to. I mean, I do hope that he settles very well. And actually, Steve McManaman made an interesting point about this: that the situation that Bellingham's in is more akin to the situation that Steve was in. In other words, it was a deal that was on the cards for a very long time, that was going to happen a long time before it actually did. Which, of course, means that some of those difficulties that you have when you first arrive can actually be dealt with really early. You know, you're not in a position where you're going to be stuck without a place to live. You're not in a position where you're sort of scrambling to find your place when you get there, because you've had time to plan for it. And so that should be beneficial. And if you look at the way that he and his family, who of course have seen through the deals, have managed all of this, then it's easy to imagine that they've managed every small element of it. I think they're very much on top of it. So it's not to say that, of course, there's a guarantee that this goes well, because there's all sorts of things that can go wrong in footballing terms, in personal terms, in terms of how you adapt, how you settle, and so on. But one thing's for sure, I think that the level of organisation and intelligence is there to suggest that he should be fine. And of course, the other big thing that I suppose makes Jude Bellingham different to some of the other players who've gone abroad from the UK is that he's been abroad before. So this isn't the first time he's been away from home, and we've seen very, very clearly in Dortmund that he has the capacity to do it. And so I think from that point of view, there's not really very much to worry about.
Sid, I think it's safe to say when you move to a club the size of Real Madrid, it's not just about the talent that you've got, but it's about how you handle particularly the pressure. And this guy, this kid to me just looks as if he's not going to be fazed. And he is still a kid, he's not going to be fazed by the enormity that's going to be in front of him. But the other thing that has come through to me is I don't think certainly not to my knowledge, I don't think I've seen a teenager sit in front of a press conference and move to a club with the Real Madrid with the panache and aura that Jude Bellingham seems to carry himself with. He just looks as if he's taken it all in his stride.
He was genuinely brilliant in that presentation press conference. Now, look, obviously, I don't want to overplay it, Craig. I don't want to kind of say, well, this guy speaks so well, therefore he's going to be a brilliant footballer, because as you rightly say, there are so many other factors. He could have injuries, he could be unlucky, he could find that his fit in the team doesn't quite work. There's all sorts of reasons why it might not work out. But I think what we saw there showed a degree of maturity and intelligence, and also that little touch of self-confidence that I think is really, really important. Now, look, again, as I say, it's a press conference. It's not him being on the pitch, and the proof will be when he's on the pitch. But genuinely, I've been in Spain for 22, 23 years. I've seen a lot of players do a lot of presentation press conferences, and I've never seen anything quite like it in terms of his control of the situation, in terms of being able to say the right thing, in terms of being able to say it without causing problems for himself. A lot of bright players essentially get themselves out of trouble by trying very hard not to say anything and being capable of talking around things and not actually saying anything. And he was able to speak eloquently, speak intelligently, respond to everyone, but still say things as well, still give answers, still give some depth, still give some insight into him. And he was really, really impressive. I mean, genuinely, the Spanish guys after the press conference who cover Real Madrid, and this is despite the fact, of course, that they were listening to him through an interpreter and he was speaking in English, they were coming out of that room saying, wow, this guy's impressive. And bear in mind, I mean, all right, he's turned 20 now, but he was 19 doing that press conference. And there was no sense whatsoever, as you say, of being overawed by it, of being fazed by it. He seemed to be absolutely comfortable with the environment he'd found himself in, totally in control.
The only thing that could scupper his Real Madrid career, really, is if he ends up frequenting that karaoke bar that Sid Lowe, Dan Thomas and you used to go to.
I got dragged there. I actually enjoyed the Spanish
culture. It's the only thing
I wasn't going to Dan's Irish pubs every week and all the tourist bars, all right? Kieran, what suggests then for you that Jude Bellingham is going to be different to some of the British players before him who have struggled to settle abroad, especially in Madrid?
Well, the good thing for Jude is that he's got the ability to use the other players' experience and try and mould it into his own. So I think he's probably gonna. I wouldn't be surprised if he speaks to players that have gone there. Gareth Bale went there, and although he'd done amazing things, the Real Madrid fans seem to be one of the more unforgiving sets of fans in the world. So he would have spoken to so many players eventually that have been there, and he'll be able to use that to work out what didn't work for them and what did work for them. I think it's important that he speaks the language, or tries to, and adapts to the culture out there. And I think he just seems like an enthusiastic young kid that likes to learn and just, do different things. So I think he's going to settle in really well. I mean, surely the 100 million fee will give him a bit of cash to go and, get a place and not have to really worry too much about doing his laundry and stuff. So hopefully a lot of his off the field stuff is minimised so that he can just concentrate on his football.
He's one of the guys I have really no doubts is going to do. I really have no reservations about how he's going to play.
So we're just showing you a possible Real Madrid starting 11 because there's reports coming from the Spanish press, namely Diario AS, that they're going to reshape the team and switch things around from a 4-3-3 to a 4-2-3-1, and he's going to play as a number 10. What more can you tell us about this, Sid? Why would they change it up?
Well, they would change it up. I think there's one very simple reason. There's a handful of other reasons, but one very simple one. And why would they change the structure of the team? Because Karim Benzema has gone. And because they don't really have the natural replacement for him. Now, they do have a number 9 because, of course, they've signed Joselu from Espanyol, but it's a different profile of number 9. So it does different things in terms of the structure around him, in terms of the way that the two wingers combine with him, in terms of whether or not they're players who go outside and provide crosses or whether they're players who come inside and play off the forward. And I think that changes the way it works. The other reason to throw in here is and I'm going to use the terrible pun now, allow me to do it. You look at Real Madrid's midfield and you've got too many. You've got too many midfielders. You've got 6 basically midfielders. Honestly, I've got to go. That's it. It's over. It's finished. It's the end. Someone's just turned it. I mean, all over the world, people are turning off their TV sets as we speak. But I mean, genuinely,
not
you look
Jude
at their
Bellingham
midfield,
now.
And you've got a situation which actually, to be honest, has surprised me. I'll be honest with you. That we've seen Modric renew, we've seen Kroos renew, and we've seen Dani Ceballos renew. Now, I thought at least one of those 3, probably Ceballos, wasn't going to renew. You add to them Tchouaméni. You add to them, you've got Camavinga, who played a lot of last season at left back. You've now got Jude Bellingham. You've also got Fede Valverde. That's 7 really, really top-class midfielders. For what is a structure of the midfield, as of last year at least, where there's only 3 in there, albeit, as I say, it's 3 plus Fede Valverde sometimes playing in the front line, plus Camavinga sometimes playing at left back. Neither of those 2 players really want to continue in that role. So you have to try and find a way of getting these players in. And if you're in a situation in which you've just lost your centre forward, then it makes sense to think, okay, well, maybe one way of dealing with this is to try and find a new structure that allows us to play more midfielders, basically, because that's where the real strength of the team lies. I think there will be a degree of rotation. You look at the Real Madrid side, and you look at the number of games they're likely to play, and it's going to be 50 plus next season. So even if you are, let's say, the fifth or sixth choice midfielder, Dani Ceballos, say, you're still probably going to play 20 games next year. Maybe only 10 of those as a starter, but you're going to play 20, 30 games over the course of the season. So I think it's not necessarily about saying this is what the structure will be, as saying right now they're in a position where they're looking at this, thinking about the resources they've got, and wondering where all these pieces fit, and if a shift in structure is the best way to help make them fit.
And so we see on that.
Did he really say that? Too many.
He did. I loved it.
I did.
I mean,
You
he's,
sound
I love a
surprised,
cheeky
Greg.
pun.
I mean,
He thinks
you
he's
sound
going-
like it's a real shock to you that I've come up with this terrible joke.
You've sat there all day thinking about that. I mean, are you going to go to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival or what with lines like you only get on University Challenge when you can come up with punchlines like that. Now, if you're wondering what University Challenge is, it's a quiz show for posh people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Basically.
Wait, did you get a tick or a cross?
The difference, of course, being the contenders, most of the other contenders get some questions right. I just go on there and smile.
Okay,
because there's nothing
Kieran,
else I
what
can
do you
offer.
what do you think of Jude Bellingham as a number 10?
I think he can do it, but he's an 8 in my opinion. He's an 8. His main attribute is his physicality, so that's what separates him. So I just don't know why you'd want to put him in a position where he can't do both parts of the game. He's big, he's strong, he can run all day, he breaks up play, he can drive with the ball from deep. I wouldn't like to see him as a 10. I'm not saying that he can't do it, but I just think he's better as an 8.
But I don't think he will be. I think we can put these formations up and get engrossed with them and talk about them. And, you know, almost every manager I've ever covered and team, years and years and years ago, there was little flexibility in team formations. Not that there was none, but there was little. It was very rigid. Nowadays it's fluid and it's flexible, and I think what you'll see, even if it's a slight structure change, is that Jude Bellingham will still be doing what Jude Bellingham's been doing for a long time, and that's getting back and defending and getting up and attacking. He will still be a box-to-box midfielder because Real Madrid will still, you know, if it's Kroos and Modric or Camavinga or Tchouaméni or a mix and match, whoever it is, defensive duties will still need to be done. It's not like, you know, Real Madrid are going to play potentially Jude Bellingham as a 10 and say, you just stay up there, Jude, don't worry about it, you don't have to defend. That's not going to happen, so he is ultimately going to be doing still a couple of different roles within that midfield. And I think, and Kieran's right, I think that's when he's at his best.
Right.
When he's at his best, when he's digging in the middle of the park and he's making those late runs, those bombing runs into the box to support the front line, and I think that's what we'll see. Just one quick line on him about, you know, the pressures of Real Madrid. It's not like he's coming from Britain and he's out his comfort zone. Mm-hmm. He's had 3 years in Germany. Mm-hmm. That is the ultimate, from 16 years old to 19, out of your comfort zone. Now he's ready, at 20 years old now, I thought he was still 19, to make this big move. So I have no qualms that this is going to be a huge success.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.